morning. My name is Megan Edwards of Focus Communications, and today we're getting another update from Kuya Silver, which trades on the Canadian Stock Exchange under the symbol KUYA. Joining me is Kuya's President and CEO, David Stein. David, we appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks for having me. We've had a lot of news the past few months, so appreciate you having me on again.
Absolutely. And for those that are new to the Kuya story, could you give us a brief introduction to the company?
Sure. We have two major projects in the company. We've got the Bethania silver mine in Peru, which that was our original project that when we went public about 3 years ago. And it's really our flagship. It's a really advanced near-term producer in central Peru. We've done a lot of the permitting and engineering work to put it back into production. It's a recent past-producing mine. And with good grades, and we believe it will be a nice profitable silver mine as soon as we put it back into production. So that's a big focus for us, and we've also done some really great exploration there over the past few years, and really expanded it from a mine scale project to a district scale project with lots of more mineralization to expand resources in the future. So that's one project that we have, and then the second project is the Silver Kings project, which we did a drill program in the first quarter on that, and so we've been getting assay results and lots of news on that lately. It's a new discovery that we've made after accumulating a big land package in northern Ontario, Canada. It's a historic silver mining district that's really seen very little exploration in the past 30 plus years. So we're very excited to get back in there and really, solve some fundamental exploration problems that by making a new discovery.
So let's get into that a little bit. Over the last 3 months, like you said, we've received a number of updates from your Silver Kings property. Can you give our listeners a deeper dive into the project?
Sure. So stepping back, we started making our first acquisition there about 2 years ago. And we acquired some claims and patents in the northern part of the camp, close to the town of Cobalt, which we call the Kerr project. So because it's near Kerr Lake, very prolific mining zone within the greater Cobalt camp. And then through two other transactions, plus our own staking as well. So we've increased our land package, or our land holdings now to over 18,000 hectares. So it's a sort of a strip of properties 30 kilometers north to south, stretching from the town of Cobalt in the north all the way to the historic Silver Center area in the south, and going even further than that to the south. So that's our land package. We've got dozens and dozens of targets in there of different scales, from what we would consider more advanced stuff where we know we've already hit mineralization. We know that there's, something there that could be worth mining. And then, other, historical mines or prospects that we need to go back and look at again, to other conceptual targets that were, never really even, envisaged by previous explorers. So we've got a huge suite of properties there and targets, and that's methodically what we're doing is going through those. And fortunately, we've been focusing on sort of the northern area because it's really the most advanced. It's where we would see the lowest hanging fruit within the greater land package right now. So if you look at this slide here, you can see our properties are in green and blue, so exploration claims and patents and leases. And there's really about 400 million ounces of the 550 or 600 million historical production really comes from this area. You're looking at about maybe a 3 kilometer radius from the center. So this is a really prolific, silver mining area. And really kind of I look at it as sort of splitting into the town, the town of Cobalt itself up here, sort of in this area, and then you've sort of got down here another trend which includes the Kerr Lake area, which those are our properties. down here. So, so that's, and why was there so much production in these areas? It's because the favorable rock units that host the high-grade silver mineralization happen to be right at surface there. So they're not at surface everywhere. We're finding that some of these really great areas for hosting silver mineralization can be buried, hundreds of meters deep. But where they come to the surface, that tended to be where all the original discoveries were made 120 years ago, and where most of the production has been to date. So, with that in mind, we've been exploring on our properties in the northern part, and including around the Kerr Lake area, which we have some really good targets we're very excited about. But more recently, we made a new discovery, and this is a great example of where at surface it doesn't look like there's very much. We do see these calcite veins, which can have a little bit of cobalt. Sometimes they have anomalous silver or other base metals in them. So it tells you that these structures are mineralized, but it's not something that someone would have been mining, 120 years ago. So we decided we needed to drill those at depth, and we thought, below the Nipissing diabase, which is the rock unit that was right at the top outcropping at surface there, which tends not to be a very good host, but it is important in terms of controlling the mineralization. So we drilled through the diabase, and right below it, where we go into, in this case, older Archean rocks, we hit a massive new discovery, high-grade silver veins at depth, including the Angus vein. So that's what we consider to be our new discovery at this Campbell-Crawford project or prospect. And we hit our discovery hole was 3.3 meters of 1,500 and change grams per ton silver. So you can see that on this slide. So we hit that, and really that sort of set off a brand new potential boom here. We hit the Angus vein in one more hole before we had to shut the program down, just because of the number of meters we had budgeted in Q1. But we're very excited to go back there now and really drill this vein and this whole area out, because there are other veins we've identified as well, both through drilling and at surface. And so we know there's, in addition to the Angus vein, which we have no idea how big it could get, we've really just, hit it twice so far. It's open in all directions. But on top of that, these veins tend to occur together in clusters. And so we want to hit more veins as well on top of the Angus vein. And that's really what we'll be focusing on in the next drill program.
And are these high-grade veins common in the district?
Yeah, I mean, it's really where all the mineralization is hosted in the cobalt camp. So you've got, as I said before, near the town of Cobalt, where the town sprung up, in the early part of the 20th century, these veins came right to surface, and so they were finding these, super high grade silver veins right at surface, and that's what they started mining. But where we're finding, where we made our discovery of the Angus vein, it's more than 200 meters below surface. So it's not super deep as mining goes, but it's definitely something that, a prospector in 1910 would never have found.
So was the Angus vein missed because of the lack of mineralization at surface?
In a way, yes. So at surface, and maybe we can jump to this slide. So where the red lines are on this slide shows the trace of the vein mineralization that we've mapped at surface. So they would have found this, these white calcite veins at surface, and also the cobalt bloom, which is an oxidized product of the cobalt mineral, which turns pink. So it's very easy to prospect using those minerals because they're very different than everything else around there.
Absolutely.
So they would have seen that. And then obviously there wasn't either enough mineralization or enough silver there to start doing a pit, which is what they would have done if there was a lot of silver at surface. So what these old timers did was they then did an adit, and the black dashed line there is an adit into the side of the hill. So they went about 100 feet down, 35 meters from the top of the hill, and did an adit. They found the veins again, but unfortunately for them, they were still just really calcite, plus maybe a little bit of cobalt, and they weren't interested in that at the time. So they walked away from this. Where they missed it was the fact that, again, they were sort of right in the middle, in the heart of the Nipissing diabase, which is a 200 to 300 meter thick, flat-lying unit of igneous rock that is pervasive in the area. It's gently folded, and so it does kind of, sometimes it's eroded away and that's where you get the veins right at surface, and sometimes it's still there. In this case, it's still there, and they never went deep enough to get all the way through it. So with our drilling, we did drill deep enough. We obviously hit what these guys would have been looking for 100 years ago with the Angus vein, and again, these, looking at the other districts or the other regions within the camp, these veins tend to occur together in clusters, and they're not always in the same direction. Although you can see there, I've got two veins on this map that are going in the same direction, but likely there'll be cross-cutting veins as well. And they all host some silver mineralization, some silver cobalt mineralization, and they could all be potentially mined at depth.
And as shown here, we recently received an update from Campbell-Crawford with news focused around surface work that has been recently completed. Could you walk us through this latest news release?
Sure. Let's stay on this slide to start off with. So we started. There was some vein showings known, from the historical prospecting. So we started doing our own stripping of those veins, because of course there's a lot of cover on top of that now, and this is what we were able to sort of uncover. You can see in the red there what we believe is the Angus vein at surface. We were able to uncover it for about 100 meters in the center part of this slide, and then we found it again over on the side of the hill. That hill's sort of going down towards the lake there. And then we were also able to find a parallel vein to the north, which we're calling the McNamara vein. So that's something where we don't know if we've hit it at depth, likely not, or if we did, we hit it too deep or too shallow. So that's something that could very well host additional silver mineralization at depth, which is the reason why we wanted to find it in the first place at surface, because that's going to help us with our exploration program, our drilling program.
You've also exposed a few other veins in the area. Could you briefly touch on those as well?
Sure. So let's look at a bigger picture here. So just step back even further, and you can see that we've got this lake in the middle. It's a very small, almost pond, you might call it, but it's called Cyril Lake. And on the other side, we found another vein. Again, this was a prospect that was known, but with no real mining on it. And this is our property as well. So we're calling this one the Clark vein. You can see it's roughly in the same orientation as Angus and McNamara, but it's offset. We believe there's a regional fault running through this, basically where the lake is. So, and that fault could be controlling mineralization and sort of causing it to spread out from the fault. So we're very excited about this air geode, is what the property is called, or this Clark vein as well. And again, we can't just clear cut the whole area. Obviously, that's not something that we want to do, nor is that allowed. So with the limited amount of stripping we were able to do, we were able to uncover Angus vein, McNamara, Clark, so giving us some really good targets to drill at depth now. And that's what we're going to do. And what I would expect is that as we get down to the target horizon below the diabase, these veins can really blow out into different structures, into other veins as well, that are sort of all connected in a bit of a web together. And that's what we see in other areas, including Kerr Lake, which, just a kilometer to the south of us here, which produced, 60 million ounces of silver in a very small area.
And our listeners would definitely like to know, what's the potential in the area, and could there be multiple deposits?
Absolutely. So if we go back to this is a good slide, just because, again, it shows you if you can look at the the writing on each of these properties, you can see how many ounces are attributable to each of these small mining properties. And these refer to the historical mining properties from, 100 years ago. So you can see in this, around the cobalt camp, each property you're looking at, 20, 30, 40 plus million ounces. And then Kerr Lake as well. The Kerr Lake mine itself was 28 million. Crown Reserve, just to the north of it, was 20 million. So the ounces add up really quickly in a relatively small area once you get onto one of these vein clusters. Even so, you can see where Campbell-Crawford is. Maybe I will highlight this and actually. So Campbell-Crawford is here. So that's where the Angus vein was, and then Air Geode is right next to it on the other side of the lake there. So this area, it's quite a ways away from Kerr Lake. There's really no significant mining around it. The closest major mine would be this Deerhorn on the other side of this lake over here. But that one was a big one. That was produced more than 20 million ounces. Again, in about, what is that, 500 meters of strike length. So that is the kind of potential that we have here. Once you get into one of these vein clusters, you can build a lot of ounces very quickly, and that's what we hope to see at in this area where we're drilling right now.
So it's encouraging to see the rapid growth of a new discovery for the company. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave our audience?
Yeah, as a final thought, we've talked a lot about this one specific area up here, where we will be focusing the vast majority, if not all, of our drilling for the next few quarters. However, we do have some really great targets outside, and what's really cool about this discovery that we made at Angus is it's sort of given us now a model that we can go and apply to other parts of the camp. So, for example, we're really interested in the North Drummond target, and we've talked about it in the past. It's right about there. But we know, we know based on Angus, what we know about Angus and other targets, that we've been drilling too deep there. So we've hit some decent mineralization, cobalt and silver. But we think above where we were drilling could be much, much richer. And again, we can go to other areas and sort of make similar kind of inferences. And I think that's really going to help us build multiple sort of, centers for mineralization in the camp. It's not just a one and done here at Campbell-Crawford. We potentially could have, several of these all over our 18,000 hectare property. And that's really, really exciting, I think.
Well, thanks again, David, for the update on Kuya, and we will have to have you on again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.